Good.
Thank you.
No problem.
I've got 6:30, Tom. Good to go.
Okay, thank you, Stone. Before I open the hearing for the Barnstable Conservation Commission, I would like to ask George to do a roll call for the quorum purpose.
Abadili,
Present.
Foster,
Present.
Gilmore present, Hearn,
Present.
Lee,
Present?
Zampu,
Present.
Tangney,
Present.
Administrator Darcy Carley,
Present.
Staff Member Kim Kavanaugh.
Present.
We have a quorum and the floor is yours, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Acting under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and or Chapter 237 of the Code of Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, January the 23rd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. for the applications of Lawrence Hurwitz, Elizabeth Gold Trustee, James Hempstead, Gordon, and James Slaney. The hearing is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. The plans and application are on file and may be reviewed by scheduling appointments by sending email requests to Darcy Curley at 230 South Street, Hyannis. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, please let the chair know if anyone is recording this meeting. Hearing none. This evening's hearing agenda is posted on the town's website. On the agenda next to each application is the amount owed to the Town of Barnstable for the cost of advertisement. Please send your checks to Conservation Division at 230 South Street before the hearing. Remote participation. The Conservation Commission's public hearing will be held by remote participation as a result of an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed by the governor on March 29, 2023, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Remote public access to this hearing shall be provided in the following manner. 1, the hearing will be televised via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. 2, the real-time public comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom link 856-3449-9381 or use the toll-free phone number 888-475-4499. That's all on the agenda. 3rd, the public can also email the comments to darcy.curley@town.barnstable.ma.us at least 8 hours prior to the hearing. Tonight, we have one item on the old and new business. Assents to Town of Barnstable's acceptance of local acquisitions for natural diversity land grants project agreement with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the approximately 5.5 acres of land at 150 Willow Road on which a conservation restriction would be placed. The Commission previously voted on October 31st, 2023 to accept and recommend that the Town Council approve said CR and send a letter of recommendations dated November 3rd, 2023 to the Town Council recommending approval. Could I have a motion?
I move that the Conservation Commission assent to the Town of Barnstable's acceptance of local acquisitions for natural diversity or land grant project agreement with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the approximately 5.5 acres of land at 150 Wheeler Road on which a conservation restriction will be placed. The Commission previously voted on October 31st, 2023 to accept and recommend that Town Council approve said CR and send a letter of recommendation dated November 3rd to Town Council recommending approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Zampu.
Aye.
Tangney.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have one RDA tonight. Is Lawrence Hurwitz to replace existing walkway and deck with a proposed 2-foot cantilever deck extensions in the area of former additional walkway at 95 Short Beach Road, Sandyville, as shown on the Assessors Map 206 parcel 125. John?
Good evening, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting. Also with us this evening are the applicants. This is a property on 95 Short Beach Road. I can bring up some of the plans that were included with this RDA. This is a house that was built in the 70s by the applicant's families. I think it was the father. This was a plan that was obtained from a conservation file from the 80s when the garage was added. It showed the existing deck and existing walkway extending beyond that. So as it explained, we are looking to replace this deck and then have a little 2-foot cantilevered out over where this walkway had been. There would be no additional posts or supports. It would just be cantilevered. We've reviewed all the files since this 80s. I can flip through a couple of them. I believe that Darcy may have sent this plan around from 2016. If I can get it to pull up here. So this was kind of the closing of our bulkhead project in 2016. You can see that when we had prepared that plan, the posts from that walkway were still visible offset of that deck. There was some nourishment above the bulkhead in these sort of areas here and some seaward of the deck, mostly not where we're talking about. And so the plan that we prepared was essentially this, but we did put some dimensions on it just so there was some hard numbers to what the size of that existing deck was and where that 2-foot cantilevered portion would be. And so with that, I think we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. Any question from the commissioner? I'm not seeing any hand in here. Channel 18, any public comment on this? Channel 18? Channel 18, is there any public comment on this?
Tom, I think he's having people enter the room, so that's probably why he's busy right now. Sorry. There he is.
Still muted though, isn't it?
Ask him again, Tom.
Stone?
Stone,
Yes, hi, sorry.
any public
Session.
comment on this one?
No, sir.
No, thank you. Could I have a motion to approve this project as a negative determination?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Sam Poole,
Aye.
Tagney,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Byrne,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Foster,
Aye.
Abadili.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
We have 3 NOI this evening. The first one is Elizabeth Gold, trustee, to construct a proposed porch at 267 Scudder Road, Osterville, as shown as Assessors Maps 139, parcel 013. John?
Good evening, John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting again, representing this applicant. I'll bring up the plan for you all. This is a project site that's located at 267 Scudder Road in Osterville. We are abutting Neck Pond. So our coastal resources, or our resources, not coastal, our resources here are land underwater bodies with an inland bank along the border of that. We have a little less than a half an acre site here. There's an existing house that was constructed around 1930. They're looking to add a small porch off the back of it. It's 8 by 16. It's above an existing landscape wall. It's in a level area of lawn. The back of that house is right at the 50-foot buffer. So we have requested a waiver under your buffer zone regulations as much as it's needed for this. I don't see how this project could have any impact on the wetland resource, stability of that bank, or the water carrying capacity of the pond. We have provided buffer zone calculations for the porch and offered the mitigation kind of along the edge of the existing brush line. It's a small amount, but it's a small project. I think with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. Luis?
At the very end of your narrative, you say the proposed mitigation will serve to improve the functions of the buffer zone. I presume, however, there is a sort of a give and take, because you're actually requiring, you are asking for a waiver. So do you want to elaborate on that at all?
In my opinion, a small porch up in the lawn at the edge of a 50-foot buffer is less of an impact than providing mitigation more, in proximity to the actual wetland, and that in enhancing that buffer and, its wildlife functions that it provides, and its being able to filter any runoffs. I think that mitigation is far better for the buffer zone and the resources beyond it than whatever impacts this project would have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Bill?
Yeah, I have a problem with the idea of simply, putting in hardscape into the 0 to 50 with that porch. It's to me, it contradicts section 704 of our town ordinance, section 704 and section 4 of that, where it says, to the extent feasible and practical, work should be avoided within the 50-foot buffer. Therefore, the granting of a waiver and acceptance of mitigation for work performed within the 50-foot buffer should be considered only under exceptional, limited circumstances. I don't feel like a porch is an exceptional, limited circumstance. I made a visit to this site, and I found that, much of the 0 to 50-foot buffer is kind of disturbed. That area that's between, in the plan that we're looking at on the screen here, the area between that little stone wall immediately lake towards, and then where the mitigation is really kind of a disturbed. It's not a vegetated buffer per se. There's a lot of moss, and then that pile of little circles over on the right, there's a whole bunch of flagstones, just old flagstones. And it's really kind of and then there's an old flight of stairs over there as well. And I feel as though a 4-to-1 mitigation is inadequate and inconsistent with the 704, section 4, which says, therefore, the granting of a waiver and acceptance of mitigation for work performed within the 50-foot buffer should be considered only under exceptional, limited circumstances. I don't find this, I don't like the project. Having thought, I do think if there was more mitigation, I think I could buy into this, but that, there's a little strip of, shrubs that are going along there. I don't feel like that's adequate. For example, where those flagstones are, which is that, it looks like I don't know what that looks like. A little pile of pebbles, it looks like, on the plan over on the right side. Yeah, right there, exactly. You pull that all out and you plant that. and then and make it contiguous with the proposed mitigation. Granted, that's a higher mitigation ratio than a 4-to-1, but I feel like that area is kind of hammered. It's not a good buffer, and I really feel like encroaching on the 0 to 50 with a porch, just it doesn't add up for me. Thank you.
If I could just comment on that, I think that the limited circumstance or exceptional is not the fact that we're asking for a porch. It's that we have a site that's been developed since 1930s. It's a small property. It's a disturbed area that we're working in. So it's not so much the project itself, it's the surroundings that's in that, if this was an undisturbed 50-foot buffer, or this was a house from 2015, I think that this would be a different circumstance, but I understand your concerns.
Thank you, John. Angela?
Where'd she go?
Mr.
We lost her.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
I was similar to Bill, and my question is simple. Why is the proposed mitigation not in that stoned area? Like, why isn't it closer to the house by 5 feet? That was my question, is how did you choose where you put this? Because I walk the property as well, and I understand there's not a lot of room to put the proposed porch, and I get that that's what you're asking for. But the mitigation, there was a lot more area that could go in. And I was curious as to how you chose where you put this.
Thank you, Angela. John?
Thank you.
We just went by the recommended ratios in the regulations of the 4-to-1, and we stretched it across the frontage there. That's how we came up with our line.
So no thought as to picking up those flagstones or whatever those are, the slate stones that are in that area?
That's something that I haven't, we did not discuss with the applicants. I don't know whether they ever set up the chairs on that. I'd have to discuss that with them before I could.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Pete?
Yeah, so I did not visit the site, but John, I have a question for you, sort of related to Angela's observation that she brought to this. So this line of mitigation area is that at the lowest edge then of sort of existing lawn kind of area? Is that why you chose it there?
Yeah, so this, you can see it kind of off to the sides here, is you see the little bubbles, is this was sort of the edge of the woody vegetation, and this is the grass above it.
So as you move towards the house from this edge, going up the slope, that's pretty much then all grass or at least not woody vegetation?
Yes.
So Bill's observation, and he brought to bear on this, is that it's a rather poor buffer in terms of what we try to do, and that's have vegetation that would uptake nutrients, ameliorate any kind of runoff, nutrient and or atmospheric pollutants coming in. So yeah, it's not a good buffer, and just a little bit more than this. Sort of, you can make this better. So that's my hope. Thank you.
I understand. We started with what it says in 704B, calculation of mitigation under a waiver. The minimum amount of mitigation, you multiply it by 4-to-1. So that's how we came up with it. We could certainly look into if we can offer more.
Thank you, John. Before I go back, John, can you tell me the width of the, in the area where you propose the mitigations around the 4.43 feet mark? How wide is that mitigation area?
It's probably like 4 feet.
Okay. So it's the narrowest 4 feet, and then across, then at the end or on both sides, it's maybe 10, 8 in that range.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Luis,
Another possibility is to consider putting the proposed porch someplace else that would still be with a view, sort of at that southeast corner of the dwelling. That would get it out of the 50-foot buffer. There would still be mitigation involved because the 50-foot buffer is not undisturbed. But it would get the proposed porch out of the 50, which would be nice.
That's true that there is an existing septic tank off of that side that would have some conflicts with, and the generator. There's also a door that leads out of the house on this pond face. So I think that might be a fireplace, I think, on the left side. So that may be a more significant.
Well, I was thinking at the other side of
Oh,
the house, but I mean, that certainly, needs to be decided by the homeowners also, in terms of they're the ones that are going to be using the porch.
thanks, Luis. Bill?
Yeah, I noticed that other side that Louise was just referring to has a deck already. And you could put a porch over there. I don't know why you couldn't, but for Pete's sake, right? For Commissioner Sampu, I wanted to mention that you'll see that where that proposed mitigation area is, it's really quite a steep drop. I mean, it's a steep bank, and a 50-foot buffer is considered okay for filtering things when you have a fairly low gradient. And here you've got it's basically a property sitting right up on a hill, and it's a fairly steep bank. And right where they're planting is in effect right at the edge of a quite steep bank. And I was looking at I had the feeling that it was like a 2-foot wide thing, and John, you mentioned it was a 4-foot wide thing, but I was looking at the scale and I thought that doesn't quite seem like it's going to be as much as 4 feet wide. 4 foot would have been something. I'm not so sure that it is literally going to be a 2-foot. I mean, it's not going to be a 4 foot wide. Anyway, I have a problem with the project. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. John?
Thank you, Tom. I think the question of where the mitigation should be placed is a very legitimate question. I think kind of where maybe Angela was going. Maybe removing those stones is a better option than where John has proposed it. I don't know. I did not visit the site, so I have no comment on that. But certainly the location of the mitigation being offered is an open question and a relevant one. Bill, the slope, the steepness of it, those kinds of questions, I think, are quite legitimate concerns for the commission. However, we have a regulation that says, where a waiver is granted, you must offer 4-to-1 mitigation. You got 62 square feet of porch coming into a lawned area versus 330 square feet of mitigation in a far more environmentally sensitive area. That to me is a win-win. Absolutely a win-win. And that is exactly what our regulation says. It allows for that. You give me 1 square foot and you want 1 square foot, I want 4 square feet back of good mitigation. Now, the question of good is, as I said, is certainly legitimate, if there's a better location for it. But beyond that, this clearly meets our regulations, exactly what John said. And maybe Darcy or somebody else could comment on the location of the mitigation plantings. But it seems to me this is a very approvable project, subject to an agreement on where the mitigation should be placed.
And if I could just respond to that, in my opinion, stretching the mitigation across the frontage where, like it was said, it's sloping above it, it's coming down. I think that, having the mitigation stretch across the landward edge of the existing woody vegetation is sort of the best for the buffer. And we didn't go off to the other side of the stairs because the vegetation comes up higher, and we didn't do much more on the east side because you can see it's naturally coming up higher. So that's, the amount was dictated by the ratios, but I mean, there was some thought to its location and how it could best serve the buffer.
Excuse me, if I could add one more comment before giving him. You also got a situation where you've got a very old pre-existing house, very small lot line. And I think when we drafted these regs, this is kind of the exact situation we were thinking of versus the larger lots where we say, wait a minute, pull it back a little bit and you could get out of the 50 as Louise was going to get it out. But given this lot, given the history, given et cetera, and given our current regulations, as I say, I think this is subject to location of the mitigation. I think it's a win-win from an environmental point of view. We're getting 4 times as much versus the 62 square feet of lawned area that we'd be giving up.
Thank you, John. Depending on the locations, I think Brian, right now we are talking about what is the best locations for the mitigations. And I know that we are still waiting for the DEP number. So I'm wondering, if we approve this or if you want to take a continuance and looking at what is the best options, I think we need a revised plan showing the thickness of that path, that mitigation area, more descriptive. I mean, right now we're saying 4, and then Bill is saying, oh, that could be 2, and that sort of stuff. If we can have a better dimensional to show us that mitigation area, I think that would be a good thing. Let me go back to Pete.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things, and I'm gonna request that Bill, after I speak, read that our regulation again. I think it's a minimum of 1 to 4, Commissioner Abadili. So in a case, again, every site is unique and specific, that the need of this bank for more than what's being offered to essentially help Neck Pond, I think is something we could consider. My second question, or my second observation, is that this line of primarily sweet fern across the slope is 1 3-gallon pot wide, and it looks like they are separated by about 5 feet on center. I could be wrong in that estimation, but I looked up a sweet fern, and at least when it's in the 3-gallon pot, it is not occupying a 4-foot wide vegetated area. So again, maybe something more could be added in there to make it a bit more robust than a single plant thickness. So if we're going to stay with this plan in front of us with 332 square feet of mitigation, I would like to perhaps see a more robust, given the challenge of this slope. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Pete. Bill?
Yeah, John Abadili says that this project is consistent with our regs. And yet when I see, as it regards additional hardscape in the 0 to 50, our ordinance says the granting of a waiver and acceptance of mitigation for work performed within the 50-foot buffer should be considered only under exceptional, limited circumstances. And I can see that there are times when, a homeowner is really hard pressed because they have a need to do something with their, some home related thing, like, God, I really need to do this. I don't think putting in a porch rises to the level of exceptional limited circumstance. We should be trying to help the buffer, especially one that is in terrible shape on a really, much of it is on a very high slope. And so I just don't see that this project is consistent, that a 4-to-1 is consistent with the regs. This is not exceptional limited circumstances. I guess that's all I can say. I can't say that enough. Thank you.
Thank you,
Excuse
Bill.
me, Tom.
Darcy?
Yes, thank you. Just also, I just wanted to throw this out here on the Conservation Commission guidelines for acceptance of applications and which type of filing the commission would consider. We had porches, 3-season rooms in the 50-foot buffer, but they were to be constructed on sonotubes. And I'm sorry, John, I don't know whether you had mentioned whether this is sonotubes. I just want to clarify that for the record. And also, Tom, I just wanted to mention it's not only the SE3 number we're waiting for, but we need a letter back from NHESP too.
I think we
Thank-
got the NHESP one.
Okay. I don't know if I saw that.
Let me go to
It came in on
Tim.
Tuesday, 126. I'm sorry, 116.
Okay, thank you.
what did John said.
The NHESP came in on Tuesday, 116.
Do you have that in front of you?
I do.
I'm going there. I'm going there right now.
Will not adversely affect and will not result in a prohibited take.
Okay.
So there was no conditions or anything in it.
Thank you. So is this, just for the record, is this on sonotubes?
So I when you asked that question, the question was asked, and I didn't realize that might be a threshold of an RDA or not an RDA. And I talked to the contractors. Their plan was for this, their hope is that this porch has a stone like patio floor. And if that's the case, then in an ideal world, that stonework would have a frost wall around it, and the columns of the porch could sit on top of that. So it's not like a foundation, it's not a crawl space, but in an ideal world, there would be a wall poured along that edge for the stones to sit within and the columns to sit on.
Okay, I don't think I meant that the difference between this coming in as an RDA or a notice of intent. I think it was how we were viewing whether this was considered a porch and not like an addition.
Okay.
The commission kind of looks at porches, 3-season rooms, something it doesn't end up becoming like an addition part of the house. And that was something on our guidelines that we were looking at, that those are usually the ones that are constructed just on sonotubes. So that was why I was raising the question. That's usually what the practice is when the application comes in, that I guess to explain to what Bill's question was, that the commission, we're not looking at this as an addition in the 50-foot, but a simpler porch, but on sonotubes. And the commission would probably have more of an issue if it was an addition in the 50-foot, so.
Right. Thank you for that, Darcy. And just like John said, under the NHESP letter, this project will not adversely affect the actual resource area habitat. And under the MISA, this project will not result in a prohibited take for this project. So for this application, we are purely right now waiting for the DEP number. And for that, Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
John?
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify a couple of things, because I have the actual CAD open on my other side. So I can tell you that the exact distance from where we've proposed this stone to the edge of the brush is 4 feet. So it's not a 2-foot strip. We are 4 feet. I guess, you know, I won't disagree that the regs say that the 4 to 1's a minimum, and we were looking for maybe some better dimension of what a mitigation, you know, would look like. It's hard to give a dimension from an existing brush line or existing pond, but it would be pretty easy to establish a distance from the wall. And so if we, you know, bump this up to 5 feet, that would be a nice even distance of 10 feet off of the wall to be able to have a dimension on a plan. If that was enough to suffice, that would get us, you know, an extra.
And John, would you consider
And the other,
some more woody vegetation in that?
what I was going to say was that would get us up to 5 feet, which then gets you, you know, the recommended planting spacing. I was looking on the other side, they got it like 30 to 36 inches. So at 5 feet, now you can kind of, whether it's doubled or whether they're at least staggered, I think.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you just got, if you're proposing that, you'll get my vote.
We would do that to be easier than
Okay,
going home with questions.
John?
Yeah, I just see again, you get, you know, 60 square feet of porch in a landscaped area, and we're getting 330 and now more than that, 400 plus square feet of mitigation in an environmentally sensitive area that needs it is an absolute win-win from an environmental point of view. So, I mean, I just can't understand why where the house, the lot is such that you just can't move it back. It's not like one of those that Louise, we've handled those before and they moved it back, we made them move it back, etc. This lot is limited. This is exactly why we gave the opportunity for a variance, where the environment ends up winning, not losing.
Thank you, John.
Bill, you and I guess, God bless, maybe we just disagree, that's all.
Okay.
Well,
Look,
if I,
one last comment.
Bill,
am I
breaking up.
hearing that
You're
you're
breaking up.
yeah, I am breaking up. Can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello?
yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm hearing that you're literally increasing the mitigation area. You're not making something 5 and shortening it otherwise. Is that right?
We're willing to increase the width or depth of that strip across the whole place, so it would be more.
Right. You are making, you would make that, okay, I was thinking it was more like literally 2, maybe 3 max, and you're saying you make it 5. Assuming that you're not shrinking it otherwise, and literally you do have a somewhat bigger area, because that whole area is just, the bank it's not good. It's really not good, but I can support your additional, making it 5 foot wide along that entire thing, plus, you know, the fatter area to the right. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. John, we need a continuance for the DEP number. I have a date of February the 6th. Would that be acceptable?
That will be acceptable. Will we be closing this and just for that? And this
That's
is the plan.
that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay, yep, that's fine.
Excuse me, Tom.
Yeah.
Could we get a cross section with dealing, just so the staff would understand there could be are you calling it a frost wall or not?
Sure.
Okay. Just so it would be nice to have that on the plan so
Right.
Staff would know not just to be looking for the sonotubes.
So let me try this. Could I have a motion to approve this project subject to receipt of a revised plan showing the discuss the mitigation areas about what 10 feet or 5 feet from the retaining wall, have a width of 5 feet with more woody plants, and showing the cross sections of the proposed porch?
And subject to a continuance for DEP only.
Right, and subject to a continuance to February the 6th for the DEP number.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Bill?
Where'd Bill go?
Way to go. Bill Hearn.
I don't see him.
Yeah.
Don't see it.
I'll come back to him. Lee,
Yeah, yes,
Hangney,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Bill, you back?
Bill? No,
Okay, the motion carries.
thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
The
you.
second LOI is James Hapstead. They demolish and rebuild a single-family dwelling on existing foundation, proposed pool and patio to south of the home at 11 Fraser Road, Barnstable, as shown on the Assessors Map 300, parcel 013. Dan?
Good evening, Chairman Lee, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Dan Ojala. I'm a civil engineer and also a land surveyor with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport, and helping the Hempsteads who are on the line out with what we feel is a nice project here in the village of Barnstable. Also on the line is, I believe, Lauren Taylor from Crawford, unless Nick wants to speak up, but they've done a very comprehensive mitigation and restoration plan on the property, which they would be happy to just discuss. I know you have a fairly lengthy agenda, so we'll try and be somewhat brief. So I'll share my screen. You're looking
Yes,
at
please.
the site plan here. You can see from the locust map in the upper right that we're up on the harbor. This is an area that's served by town sewer. So that takes away some of the concerns that we often have. There is actually an old sewer easement that runs through the southeast portion of the property that carries up to the Freezer Road pump station from the county facility, and the Salt Marsh area would be considered Rendezvous Creek, is to our south and then wraps around to the west and heads north out towards Barnstable Harbor. Pleased to report the sewage lagoons that show up on the 1974 quad map are not in service anymore as sewage lagoons, so cleaner creek probably than it used to be. And now with all the sewer going up to the treatment plant, quite pristine. One of the issues on this is that the Phragmites, as they often do, are starting to come in around the site, and they block the natural vistas and crowd out the native species. So as part of this project, we are looking at some at least a minimum amount of Phragmites control, and then some options for an expanded, which Crawford can touch on. The home was constructed in the early 80s out on Freezer Road. There's a garage here. You drive out, there's a circular driveway, and the home is right here. The foundation is in good shape, so we're going to reuse it. We're going right on the existing foundation, and that forces our hand a little bit with some of the setbacks, but I think you'll all agree that considering the big deck that's being removed and the hardscape being adjusted and all the mitigation that's provided, that it's a nice win for the environment and will be good for not only the applicant, but for the town and the environment at large. So we're dealing with, again, the creek riverfront, which is the majority of the site. There's a salt marsh which comes up to the flags. There's a short bordering vegetated wetland against that. And then there's a town and state coastal bank, which is about the flood zone elevation and varies up and down a little bit across the site. It's fairly, it's not particularly close to the site. It's down at the top of the bank along the driveway here and goes out. The home is up a little bit for coastal resiliency. We're raising the filling in a low area around it. We are on the south side. We're introducing. The applicants would really love a pool, and what we were able to squeeze in there was in the patio area in an existing lawn, a lap pool. It's only 10 feet wide, but allows them to swim back and forth and get some exercise in that manner. You can see here the existing stairs are about 20.1 feet from the nearest resource area, which is the BVW, and it's going to be 22.1 feet away. Crawford Land Management worked carefully with us to put in mitigation plantings all around the home, right up tight to the hardscape. So there's actually only a 3-foot gap between around the house and the hardscape. So we're thinking probably that's such an easy, yardstick measurement that we need not put big rocks in there to mark it. But we could certainly consider that if it was insisted upon. They're environmentally conscious folks. They're actually going to take all the roof runoff and collect it in a big collection tank to help irrigate the plants. We get more of these dry summers. And then that does overtop if we get a lot of rain, which a roof will generate quite a bit of flow volume. So that's going to overflow to a dry well, which will infiltrate it naturally. And then on the south side, there's a dry well for the pool drawdown and also for the roof runoff on the southeast corner of the building. So again, with the work limit line follows the edge of lawn, and you can see from the landscape plans that we're then pulling the mitigation up fairly close to the house, and in that manner. And you can see in red here the older walks. We're replacing a new walk there. There's the existing patio. Proposed is just a bit outside of it. We're pulling it back a little bit at the closest spot and getting rid of this big deck that's up in this area. It's faintly shown in red, and revegetating that whole area. I think we did with our narrative carefully go through the riverfront area, your land subject to coastal storm flowage guidelines, the BVW, the coastal bank. Again, the bank is stable and vegetated. We're adding mitigation plantings to provide increased stabilization and mitigate against wind and rain runoff with the dry wells. And the staked silt fence will protect that. We're looking at the 237 compliance. Went through your regulations there with the narrative. Again, roof dry wells, mitigation to offset the increased hardscape. We did remember on this one to break out carefully the mitigation calculations. That's shown on the lower left portion of the site here. I could go over that quickly. We're looking at the house and the garage 0 to 50, and then 50 to 100. It's about a wash. Well, let me just say, house garage is 447, existing 456 proposed. The deck is existing 850 going down to 596. Pool patio is 653, where there was only 271 a patio. Driveway is about a wash. And then the 50 to 100s are broken out there as well. And then net is over here. You're looking at the 0 to 50. It's only a 99 square foot increase. And then on the 50 to 100, a 498. When you multiply that, you get to 99 times 4 plus 498 times 3. So the big multipliers, you get about 1890. But you'll see from the restoration plantings that we're well over that with what is proposed. And then also some additional Phragmite restoration, which will say we'll probably do and in that manner really up the ante on the environmental benefit from this. There's a couple of U quarters, which are, if you look through the photographs, more or less existing. We're going to clean it up a little bit. There's one Norway maple right here. That's an invasive species, which we're going to nick in that area there. The Crawford Land Management has a bunch of photographs that went through the site. There's your overview on the aerial, and they'd be glad to talk a bit about their restoration plan if you folks have time and would like to hear that, and we'll be glad to present.
Before I go to Crawford, on this engineering plan, I think we're missing some dimensions on the pool. I know you're showing at 12. I don't know whether it's at 12 or the width of the pool, but you mentioned about 10 feet.
Yeah.
And also the distance from the resource area to the proposed building or the deck. We need some of those dimensions too. So just keep that in mind for now.
We'd be glad to add those to them. It's all to scale, and the closest one is shown, but I agree, we could have added a couple others.
Yeah. Lauren, do you want to go through, Lauren from Crawford, do you want to go through the proposed mitigation planting?
Sure. Dan, if you would stop sharing your screen, I'll share mine.
There you go.
So I think Dan touched on most of the key points of the mitigation plan. I'll just point out a few things so you know what you're looking at. So in terms of mitigation that's required, it's about 1,890 square feet. We're proposing 2,000 square feet. All that mitigation would be in areas that are existing lawn, and it would be, so it's this gray hatch here. So that's essentially revegetating as much of the 0 to 50-foot buffer as we pretty much can, aside from, you know, staying out of the existing dwelling and deck, and then maintaining a 3-foot wide access path like Dan had mentioned. So that would all be vegetated with large native woody shrubs. And then, as Dan mentioned, there was also an optional, or not an optional, a phase 1 restoration area. And so that would be just managing any instances of invasive or non-native vegetation that are in this area here. So this is the planting plan for that area. There's also an area of Phragmites down by the wetland that would be managed as part of that phase 1 restoration work. And then in addition to that, the applicants have expressed an interest in doing some more restoration work on the rest of the property, but they'd like to phase that out into later phases essentially. So right now this is more of a master plan that's just suggesting those areas. Phase 2 being a little bit further out by Freezer Road in this area, and phase 3 occupying the rest of the property. So this is just suggestive for now, but if the applicants are, you know, ready to do that work later on, we would put together a planting plan for those areas. And ideally we would resubmit that as a plan revision to this order as opposed to doing a new separate filing. Our materials had some notes on the actual timeline and management techniques for all of the proposed work, which I don't think I need to get into now, but if there's any questions about that or just the mitigation work in general, I'd be happy to answer those. And Nick Crawford is here as well to help answer any questions.
So just for clarification, so in the description, when you mentioned about the phase 1 for non-native species management and the Phragmite management under the phase 1, that is part of this project. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Thank you. Angela.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy with the mitigation restoration plan, especially the phase 1 stuff out by the road. That's awesome. And the wooden deck you're taking out of the 50-foot, which is great. My only question was, and I walked this, the pool was well marked with blue markers for this lap pool. Any chance that it could be moved 8 feet towards the driveway to get a little more out of the 50-foot? That's my question about just the pool.
Thanks, Angela. Dan, do you want to make any comment on that?
We certainly could look at that. You know, it's our hope, you know, we wouldn't want anybody to nosedive into the pool off the driveway. We're hoping to have some plantings there buffering the two. But you know, if the majority of the members feels that's a big improvement, we could certainly look at it. I'd hope to leave it where it is. It seems to align nicely with the house and not get too close to the drive where we have it. And with the excess, and a lot of times we'll count for that non-native species management, 50% mitigation, you'd be thousands of square feet over. So, you know, we're hoping that we could cover the sins with all that work, but I'll certainly listen to the other members.
Thank you, Dan. Bill?
Yeah, I have to apologize. My iPad went haywire and I lost the last part in the vote on the last project. And I missed the beginning of Dan's presentation. Welcome to Zoom. What's the width of that pool and the length of it? Do we know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's 10 by 40.
10 by 40.
It's a lap pool, basically. You're not going to do much side to side, but you can at least get some rhythm going up and down the pool, you know.
So as one who really tries to, you know, limit the amount of hardscape in the 0 to 50, I support Angela's suggestion that, you know, if you can just like push it about, you know, 8 feet or something like that. I was at the site and I met the gentleman who is the owner of that house, and I suggested to him, gee, do you think you can like move it a little forward? And he seemed amenable to that. He actually talked about at one point they thought of moving the whole house forward. but that became too much of a project, and he seemed kind of amenable to just kicking it about 8 feet. If that thing is about 10 foot wide and you kicked it, that'd be like 80 feet right out. You could eliminate 80 feet of hardscape from there. Right now it's like 99, and I think, boy, that'd be really nice. And if the owner is amenable to that, as he suggested he might well be, I would encourage that. Thank you. Otherwise, great project.
Thank you, Bill. Pete?
Yeah, actually, this commissioner is, as much as I worry about the environment, et cetera, Dan, you have brought forth here a remarkably positive project in front of us. This commissioner, given the extensive work that you're doing in the buffer, revitalizing, taking care of Phragmites, potentially going even much further in managing it at a phase 2. This commissioner then, given that balance of things, I'm going to sound like Abadili, I'm great with the project like it is. I don't need to see the pool moved. But if if the owner says, sure, that's okay with me, I'm not going to fight that either. Thank you.
You'd like it, right?
I think it looks great, and Dan's understanding, or his point, that it fits nicely within the geometry of the house. I concur with that.
Yeah, looking at the plan geometry wise, it looks balanced in terms of the pool and the house and stuff like that. But I wasn't thinking about 8, but I was thinking like maybe 4 feet or something, and see if you can move it. But that's just my thought. Any other comment from the commissioner?
Excuse me, Tom?
Darcy?
I just want to mention, Dan, as far as preparing this notice of intent, the abutter letter, which we turn around, in the project description, none of the vista pruning or the restoration work was even mentioned. I don't know if that, like when you were working on the project, that was kind of added later, but you really have to be careful on your abutter letter that's going out that it's listing everything. Otherwise, I mean, I don't have a problem with the restoration, but it's your abutter letter's lacking, just so you know.
Yeah. Well, fair. Hopefully, we've only really got one abutter, and they kind of share the neck with us. And I think it's such a positive project. I hope they are prized and okay. I don't know if the Hempsteads have knowledge of that or not, but I appreciate that. Yeah, I like, it's very zen how it lines up with the house right now. If there's any way we could leave the pool there, would love to, but would certainly listen to any other comments and take them into account.
Okay, just talk to Kim, make sure that you paid for your vista pruning too, and I guess you're offering the restoration as part of the mitigation work, so there wouldn't be the extra fee on that, but you should submit the check for the vista pruning.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
Thank you, Darcy. One last round for your comment, Commissioner. If not, I'm going to the public comment for this. John.
Thank you, Tom. I happen to agree with Peter, because Peter and I are agreeing on this one. What we're gaining out of this thing is pretty exceptional and really positive. Wouldn't disagree with Bill and Angela that if they could pull it back a little bit, fine. But if not, I think it's still a win-win.
Thank you, John. Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
Oh, excuse me, Tom. Oh, just before you make to go with the motion, I would like to have it stated in the special condition that Crawford Stay, the consultant for the restoration work, that's otherwise we would have to have something in writing to review anybody else. And the 3 years. And the 3-year monitoring reports.
Right.
I mean, reports for 3 years. Yes.
Yeah, that one I have. So,
Tom, I have another point, if I could.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when I was on site and I was talking to the owner, if you will, waterwood side, in other words, to the left of the pool, is a very large rhododendron. And the owner really wanted to save that. And he's kind of concerned that, he may not be able to. And, I suggested, well, you could move it forward and it'd be all much better. And we were talking about, could the whole, he said himself, maybe, I was thinking of moving the whole house. Well, he's got this large rhododendron he's interested in trying to save. And I know that we're about to go into a vote. And I know that Pete and John, it's a great project. And I agree with that. But before we just all of a sudden, make this a done deal, is there a way that, the owner can be consulted? And is he willing to move it? And in doing so, he could, you change the plans a little bit. And if he doesn't, fine. But I would love to see, less hardscape in the 0 to 50. And yes, it's a good project. But if the owner himself is amenable to that and even wanting to save a large rhododendron, why lock it in and make it so that it looks like that? Because a few of you all say, well, I like the symmetry. When in fact, maybe saving a rhododendron is important to him as well. And it would get that pool more out of the 0 to 50. I mean, it'd be nice to have, I guess, is there a way of just having a short continuance? Ask the guy if he's, I don't know if he's there. I don't remember his name. I'm sorry. But if he was willing, then why don't we ask him before all of a sudden we set this in stone?
Tom?
Yeah, John.
If, I think Bill's point is very valid. If we can get even something better than what's on this plan, that's great, Bill. I absolutely support that. What about if we made a motion approving the plan, but also allowing as part of our condition that the owner would be allowed to move it back at his discretion up to 8 feet or something like that? So, which would give, responding to Bill, would give the owner the opportunity to reconsider it. We would love it, but he doesn't have to come back under another continuance or anything. We just give him permission to move it back. Maybe that would, Bill, address the option that you want to put in there.
I like that, John. Thank you.
Because I was thinking about the revised plan, so to give them some options. So I think we're on the same line. George?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. Thanks, John.
Would be happy to have that as a condition, and we'll consult carefully and either transplant or save the roadie. It sounds good to me.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve this project subject to the following? 1, provide additional dimensions and for the proposed pool and the distance from the resource area, and allowing the homeowner to make a second look in terms of whether to pull the swimming pool towards the driveway to save the dented end road. And Comfort is the consultant on this project. If there is a change of the consultant on this restoration consulting work, then there will be a written notifications to the staff for the change and an annual report for 3 years.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Badili,
Aye.
Tangney,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Kern,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Good luck,
I really
Dan.
appreciate your careful consideration, and we'll have a good project for you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
The third NOI is the Gordon and James Slaney. Replace existing in-ground pool, mechanical and wood patio with new in-ground pool and masonry or stone patio in existing footprint. Maintenance of path, entry, stairs, and deck at 878 Main Street, contoured as shown in the Assessors Map 035, parcel 078. Arlene?
Good evening, Arlene Wilson, AM Wilson Associates here for the Slaneys. 2 things tonight. First, I've been having connectivity issues all day. And so if you lose me for a few minutes, I'll be back. And the second thing is to please bear with the technically disabled people this evening. I'm going to try and share the screen at the request of Darcy. So here we go.
Okay.
Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yay. So this is the Slaney property. The existing swimming pool and the proposed swimming pool are both right here. They sit absolutely flat to grade in a lawn area that was authorized by the commission in 1996 with a pool fence that's just below the top of the bank and some Rosa rugosa on the inside of that pool fence. The corner of the pool fence is the corner of the pool is about 48 feet landward of the top of the bank, so just shy of the 50. But there's no additional hardscape here, and there's no further encroachment toward the bank as a result of this project. What they're going to do is just square off the existing pool and replace the wood decking with masonry or stone set in sand so it drains well. The area, for those of you who have been out there, is as flat as a pancake. So I don't anticipate any erosion problems as a result of the work. We've shown a work limit in this area. We're going to try and put all of the construction materials to be stored in the front, but there may be some for short periods of time within that work limit area. The access is going to be along the south side of the house. The pool mechanicals will also be replaced, but they're landward the 100-year or the 100-foot buffer. And the drawdown pit is also going to be landward of your jurisdiction. As those of you who have been out there have seen, there are some areas in the existing wood access ways to the house and little raised wood decks that need some maintenance. So we're asking for permission to be able to replace that. That's a board situation. They're not going to take the entire thing out and replace it, just periodic maintenance. And any vegetation along the access to the pool or the sideline here that gets damaged during construction will be replaced. It's all landscape material now that was installed when the original swimming pool was built. And I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Arlene. Any question from the commissioner? None? Let me try one more time. Any question from the commissioner? Channel 18, any public comment on this?
Seeing none.
Could I have a motion to approve this project as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Pangi.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
We have one continuance. Antonia Nadia, proposed extension of existing pier at 30 Oxford Drive, contoured as shown in Assessors Maps 021 parcel 062. This is a continuance from the 16th January the 16th. the quorum is everyone except John, but John took the Moreland rule and joined the quorum on this hearing. We also have received the DEP number SE3-6151. Hannah.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Hannah Raditz, wetland scientist with BSC. I do apologize again that the revised plans were submitted quite late, but I will go ahead and share my screen so that we can have it in front of us. Can everyone see the plan?
Yes.
Awesome. So the revisions to this plan were mostly comments. As we discussed in the previous hearing, there was quite a bit of discussion relating to what portions of the pier were going to be fixed, what portions were going to be seasonal, and also what was approved previously. So for the comments that were requested by the commissioners, sort of to put our structure in context, the structures that are currently located on No Bottom Pond range between 16 feet in length and 34. So our pier at about 35 feet is about average. We also checked the existing floats, the adjacent properties based on the latest Google Earth imagery. I also have Google Earth open tonight if it would be helpful to show the latest imagery of the property and the adjacent parcels. So this portion of the pier won't take up a large portion of the pond. It'll be roughly in line with other piers, as I mentioned. So it shouldn't be sticking out in any way that would prevent neighbors from using the pond. The applicant would also like to have an attachment ladder, which they propose to place on one of the sides, not on the pondward or deep water side of the end float. So it won't be an additional obstruction, and that ladder will just be an attachment to the floats. It won't be anchored or within the sediment. The materials that were requested, we added additional notes, and to the cross section, the helical anchors will be galvanized steel, and the decking will be synthetic decking throughout. So that, I believe, was all the questions about materials. So for the most part, I think that answers most of the questions from the commission during the last hearing. And I can also just bring up the Google Earth imagery. This is imagery from 2017, but it's a really good image because it shows the winter conditions and it's quite sharp. Some years it's a little less. Our property here, 30 Oxford Drive, you can see currently there's nothing in the water. There's not been a float at this property for the past that we have been aware of. It's just been empty here. You can see that it's quite dense. All the canopy layer is still here, and you can see the adjacent floats here at this property and the other piers here and here. So of the pond, you can imagine that the pier will stick out only about here where my cursor is, so it'll be roughly in line with this, these floats out here. So it shouldn't stick out very much. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to the commissioners. Feel free to ask if you would like the project plans brought up again.
So the date on the revised plan is January the 22nd, if I remember right. And then the second thing is, Hannah, the first 12 foot is permanent, and then the rest of the pier is seasonal, right?
That's correct.
And then the last section is a fixed pier portions, not a float.
So you're correct. It's an ender pier section that's seasonal. I didn't mean to call it float. It's going to be the exact same as the rest. It's just going to be orientated.
And then with the access ladder on the side of the seasonal pier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the last.
Did my plan show up properly?
Yes.
Yep. So this is not a float. That's just a section of the pier. Just typically is. That's why it was in my head. it's going to be the exact same as the rest of this seasonal pier. And the ladder will be on either side, to the left or right. It won't be on this end float, just so that it's not obstructing any of the waterway.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Question from the commissioner, George?
Yeah, Hannah, I'm still a little confused. So your proposed walkway going out is how wide? 4 feet?
4 feet. Mhm.
Okay, so that end section, is that end section going to be a T, or is it going to be 4 feet wide also? Oh, it's going to be
It'll
6 by
be-
10. I see it
Yeah,
now.
it'll be
Okay,
6 by
thank you.
10 and it'll be T-shaped, just like a traditional float
okay.
would be. Mhm.
Yep, thank you.
No worries.
Any other question from the commissioner?
Yes. Yes.
John?
Thank you, Tim. Hannah, I listened actually several times to the last hearing in this that I was not part of, but under the law I'm allowed the Mullen to participate in this one. And there's some really good questions and really good comments by the abutters too. Clarify for me exactly what was the approved plan under the prior earlier filing in 2014, that approved plan versus the plan you've got in front of us tonight. Exactly what are the differences, please? Just to clarify that.
Okay, yeah, sure. So my understanding of the previously approved project is that it was roughly the same footprint, roughly the same length. So this side view shows you as far out as it was going to go. What was going to be proposed was a fully permanent structure all throughout. This structure as proposed, as we just mentioned by George, it's only going to be this 12-foot section of the end pier that's going to be permanent. The rest of the pier will be seasonal and will just be resting via footings, so no pilings. So this is a reduction in scope from what was originally proposed, though it's roughly the same footprint and size of the pier itself. So not a drastic change, but it'll be a seasonal rather than a permanent structure. And what some confusion did come up because when the former owner had pursued this permit application, he only installed that first section of the permanent pier, that 12-foot section by the shore, and didn't end up installing the rest of it. And so they filed for a partial certificate of compliance saying we didn't do the rest of the work, this is all we did, and an as-built was filed, which just showed that end portion of the pier. I believe that answers your question, but let me know.
It does. And there was a notation then on a visit by Darcy in which it was noted that it was a partial compliance with the approved plan, with a note by the staff that if they needed to add the extension or the rest of it as per the approved plan, they'd be allowed to do that. I saw that in the file at least. Another question: at this length, maybe I heard you wrong, but I thought you said the average lengths were somewhere between 16 and 34 for everything else, and this was 35. Did you say that, or did I miss those numbers?
No, you're correct. I had the links of the other piers on the pond added to the plan, so they are between 16 and 34, and our pier is 35.
So then you said something, well, it's sort of like the average, but obviously my math would go out differently than that.
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. The average would be something more like 25. I just meant it wouldn't particularly stick out
Okay.
amongst the others.
Yeah, got you on that one in a math question. And the reason you want, or the current application is to go out to the 35 is why? Why are you asking for that? Is it any way to make this any shorter, which I think Angela or somebody asked about that in the prior hearing, or I think Louise, well, whoever, somebody asked that question. Is it possible to make this shorter and meet the homeowner's needs relative to the vegetation issues?
So the final section that ends at the T does need a little extra depth just for the use of the dock for kayaking. They just wanted that little extra water depth, also in case they wanted to swim. But this was also within the previously approved scope, which was at a 35-foot length out from the pond bank. So it's not asking any more than what was previously approved.
And there's an improvement from an environment in the sense that you're going from what was a approved fixed versus seasonal, correct?
Yes, and also this pier does not need any large equipment to install. The contractors that were contacted about this pier said that they would be able to come down to the pond and just bring all the stuff down on the existing cleared 4 to 5 foot wide path and do the helical anchor installations with equipment that they can use by hand. And each year they will use that fixed portion of the pier as their starting point to build out the seasonal dock.
Okay, thank you. And you did answer the question about the material. It's going to be artificial. It's not treated. I think you answered that. Okay, because that was a good question. Final point, and this is more for Darcy, and the abutters sent in some really good analysis. I mean, it was really, whoever wrote that did a really good job, raised some great questions. One of the issues that was raised was missing trees. Darcy, can you kind of address that for me? Darcy, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Yes, I think Mr. Redden did send in a revised letter stating that the trees are there. That he made a mistake in the first submission of his comment letter, but I'll let him answer that.
Okay, I missed that follow-up.
Yeah, there was a follow-up letter.
Okay, I missed that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Angela?
Yeah, thank you, Tom, and thank you, John, for bringing up my question. I have no problems with this project. I went out and saw it again for myself and walked out there. They need this length to get past the heavy vegetation there. And so all of my questions from last time have been answered, but thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Any other questions from the commissioner? Seeing none. Channel 18, any public comment on this? I saw a field of butter.
We do have two neighbors here, Eric Kaiser and Jim Redden. Do either of you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, Jim Redden does.
Jim?
Okay, this is Jim Redden. I did send in the comments, a lot of them. I thank you for having read them. I do want to just make sure that they have been read and understood. My idea, as I said, the cover letter I didn't see is in the is in the file, but I assume it would be, where I recognize that I'm basically trying to be transparent. I'm a butter to the property, but I'm also a professional engineer, having done construction and engineering work for over 40 years. I've done the permitting experience many times. I've permitted a saltwater dock. So I have some background in this. So I'm certainly trying to ask questions to make sure all the rules are followed, and that's all I'm trying to do. And I am a professional engineer, like I said, so if that makes a difference. Apparently there are no questions to me, but it seems to me the documentation that was included in the file, in the public file, clearly stated that there was no pier extension on the application and the permit. I'm still not clear whether the permit is called 2013 or 2014. It was issued in 2014 for sure. The documents that were produced that are saying they were given apparently an unlimited extension of a permit that clearly showed something was not built in 2014, which was the as-built drawing submitted by the firm that is now representing that there is some other thing in the drawing that isn't on the drawing. And it's also mentioned, I don't want to be too fast here, but it's also mentioned in general conditions, the ongoing conditions, which specifically state the ongoing conditions are the as-built drawing is, and as I documented, you can follow that the as-built supposedly was what was built, and somehow there is a new something. And so, because all I thought it was, my first thought was this should be a new application, and that's what we should be following. Therefore, if the committee is satisfied that they clearly understand that the documentation and that somehow this is grandfathered under that, that's fine. So then again, for the second time since this meeting, the engineering firm sent in another plan for this documentation
outside the 8-hour suggested limit of when they should be sent in. So they sent in again, 2 hours before the meeting. So I've had time to review it briefly. One of the things that jumped out at me is they finally on the drawing put in something relating to mitigation, where they admitted that they stated the impact of this project is 146 square feet. Or 448, correct me if I'm doing some of this from memory, which sounded to me quite not reasonable. I submitted one calculation that the committee probably has reviewed, I assume, on what area is impacted by. And the area of impact to me is there's a dock that's going to be put in every year. We have not yet seen any diagrams of the equipment itself that's going to move in and out each year, but it's a seasonal dock. So twice a year, all this equipment is going to have to move in and out of the construction area. That's an area about, at the minimum, since the dock is 6 feet wide, say it's 14 feet by like 45 feet. If you start doing the math, that comes into close to 1% of the area of the pond. And then if you use which I believe applies here, the cumulative effect of those under Regulation 237 will be 9% of the pond surface. Every year, 9% of the pond surface potentially is going to be impacted by having docks that come in and out of the dock every year. So I just want to make sure the committee is recognizing those issues as how I interpret what I'm seeing in the documentation in front of me right now. And then I just want to end with the fact that I've been living on the pond for 10 years, no bottom pond. The water quality has clearly been deteriorating over this 10 years. Some of us have formed a pond group to try to help mitigate those situations. There have been cyanobacteria indications within the last couple of years. So all that information is recorded in public records, both from, I think it's the water company, the town, and the APCC are monitoring the pond. They're not part of the 50 pond project. But this pond seems to be on the edge of accelerating into deterioration. And here we're trying to put a new dock into the pond. So I thought I should raise that and understand. The final point I'm making is I just watched 3 different NOIs come into play, and all of them had a buffer zone mitigation calculation. And this project doesn't seem to have any of that. So I'm an engineer. I'm looking at this. I'm asking for clarification. I guess that's all I'd like to say right now.
Thank you, Jim. Any public comment on this one? There's a second one. Is it Eric?
Yes, Jim's done a wonderful job with this. I encourage you to read everything you can. It goes on and on, but it's all accurate and true. My only comment would be to keep this thing as small as you can if you're going to build it. There's already been mistakes made before, and you saw the pictures of them. So if at the very least, just bring the dock to the edge of we have I guess it's called common buttwood or something that grows in the water there. And if it just goes to the end of that, it's adequate. And because of the eutrophication of this pond, I would say it's probably a better idea not to put a swimming ladder on if you're going to use it for swimming. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Channel 18, any more public comment on this?
Seeing none.
None? George?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, Hannah, I think you made the statement that the helical piles are going to be installed by handheld equipment. And you also, I believe, made the statement that the seasonal deployment and extraction was going to be done by hand also. And that these posts aren't jetted into the bottom, they're sitting on pads. Is that all correct?
That's correct. From my understanding with the contractors who do deploy seasonal docks on a yearly basis, they will be able to carry these things in, the floats. They will be able to install them on supports that aren't jetted into the sediment. They just sit on top of it. And for the helical anchors that will be installed for the replacement of the existing pier, which will be stationary, just the 12-foot section, they said it will be difficult, but they can use a tool to install those pilings to eliminate any need for equipment to be coming back and forth from the edge of the pond. So that's my understanding.
Thank you.
Along the same line, I think, George, I'm looking at that cross section. I did not see any pad at the bottom of the aluminum stand. I think it might be worthwhile to have either add a note or something to show that there is a pad that the aluminum leg is sitting on, rather than insert into the ground. I mean, I know a lot of contractors make a different interpretations, but that would clarify that piece. Am I right?
That's a good point, Mr. Chairman.
Any other question from the commissioner on this, Luis?
Well, I'd just like to make the observation, you know, in answer to, in a partial answer to concerns around eutrophication of the water quality. One way to look at a dock is the benefit is that it makes it possible to use the water resource for recreation, or, well, just think about recreation without stirring up the muck and disturbing the plants and everything else. So in a sense, there is a benefit to having a dock there, because it avoids the human factor of disturbing everything. So you want to think about that as well. I mean, it's only part of the story, but it certainly is a benefit to a certain extent.
Thank you, Luis. John?
Yeah, just Tom, in this, assuming it goes to an approval, we'll see. We're gonna put time in it. Seasonal, Darcy, no, we usually include time for in and out.
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Freshwater
thank you.
guidelines, yes. Yep.
Thank you very much.
The other thing I just want to mention, you know, Jim is a professional engineer. I appreciate that. I'm also a professional engineer too, from Massachusetts and Connecticut and some other states too. But so I appreciate that your comment, and I read through all that stuff, and I think it meet kind of the redesign, kind of meeting the regulations per se, because we prefer in a lot of the freshwater pond, we prefer to have a seasonal dock rather than a permanent dock, and so that's what I mentioned it. Could I have a motion to approve this project subject to a receipt of a revised plan showing the bottom of that aluminum leg is sitting on a pad, and this will be a seasonal dock, and I think Darcy would add the seasonal, the timing wise for the seasonal removal. I think it's between April and September or so.
It's, yeah, April and November.
Okay.
And also it's obviously not motorized, so just for
Right.
kayaks and,
On motor.
yes.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second. Anyone
Second,
roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Hangney,
Aye.
Sampu.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you for your time.
We have two easy certificate of compliance. Paul Roth, SE3-5685, William LeBlanc, SE3-6043. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Sampu,
Aye.
Hangney,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Foster,
Aye.
Abadili,
Aye.
that's unanimous.
We have one set of minutes, January the 9th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Hangney,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
that's unanimous.
Our next hearing is February the 6th. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
aye.
Gilmore, aye, Hearn,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Kangi,
Aye.
Zampo.
Aye.
We're adjourned at 8:04, Mr. Chair.